Hello, and welcome to part 4 of the West Goldfield Space Agency in Kerbal Space Program. Now, today we do have a contract we took last time, which is ferrying 2 tourists into orbit. So, I think we can just start on that now. Of course, though, we are going to use our rocket we typically use for ferrying tourists, which is the RLV-2A, and then we'll just go into crew and click the check marks. Now that we have gotten our tourists into space, it is time to point retrograde and speed up, which is really slowing us down and will send us back to Earth. And here we go, about to touch down, we will get rid of the heat shield and land safely. I guess in the middle of a desert. Nonetheless, we can recover the vessel, and we'll see money roll in, and I believe we should be able to take a new contract. We actually got a bit of science from our crew report. We got some money recovered, and Jebediah is ready for a new mission. Now, if we check on mission control, we can see that we have actually quite a few contracts. Now, I do think it will be pretty boring to just keep ferrying tourists, but I do think we'll take one more because there is something that I want to do. I do want to get more science data, and I believe if you go further out into space, you are able to do that. So, I believe if I just orbit further away from Earth, more science can be had. So now I do want to just check on our rocket and see how we would be able to do that. Now I think the easiest answer would be to rotate this and then just add some more boosters. And I think this should work if it allows us to launch it. And what else I will do is put a science bay. Now this time I want to look into a communication or a satellite, not a satellite, but some way to communicate. Maybe because we'll be able to transmit science back, especially crew reports. Now I do want to check on it to see what it requires, right? This needs a lot of electric, and we don't really have that. But it seems like it has 3.3 repeating bandwidths, and so does this one. So it really doesn't matter which one we choose between these two. So we will pick this, we will open the service bay, and just put it on. And now we should be able to launch this rocket. Now of course though, we are going to put some tourists on, but it seems we have a problem with the amount of parts on the vehicle. So now I do want to look at how to upgrade this and solve this problem, as now we do have a good amount of money. Now we should be able to upgrade the vehicle assembly building, and it'll give us many, many more parts. And then we can just launch the rocket. And there we go, we now have a pretty large elliptical orbit that should send us way out into space. So that's where we're just going to head. Now that we are all the way out here, what we can do is just run some experiments. And there we go, we successfully did all of our research, and it seems like we are going to get a ton of data and research. So now what we're going to do is just deorbit. Now that was a pretty rough re-entry, because it was a pretty steep re-entry. We actually lost one of our fins in the process, and I thought we were going to plummet into the ocean, but we didn't. Also, the abrader, which is basically what actually absorbs the heat on the heat shield, is like used a lot more than we've seen in the past. But now we're just going to sink down to the ocean and get rid of the heat shield. That right there is loads and loads of science, to the point where I think we can actually look at researching things. Also, we recovered some amount of money, and our crew is all good and ready. So if we slot into research, we can see we have quite a few things we could research. And honestly, I feel like basic science might be one of the better ones we could research, because it gives us probes, which are pretty important, some batteries, science junior, which is what will allow us to do more science. You can store science in this machine and then recover it. I mean, radiators aren't too important, but it also gives a better antenna. Flight control, I think, is pretty useless, at least for right now. Advanced rocketry, I mean, almost half the things are just fireworks. I mean, a few engines are cool. Landing, also, to me, doesn't seem pretty important. Aerodynamics is mainly for planes, and we don't really use a lot of planes. Advanced construction, also, I don't think is too important. Fuel systems is pretty cool, but I don't think we have a rocket engine to go with it, unless we, research this. Plus, anyways, we can't even afford researching that stuff. So I do think what we will do is research basic science. Now, what else this might allow us to do is actually start putting satellites in orbit, which would allow us to transmit data better and get more information out of it. But with that said, as we can see, we have a new probe. We got some batteries, a new radar, which, as we look at it, it can do a lot more, almost double the bandwidth. And most importantly, we got the Science Junior and the experiment storage. Now, I do think this means we can just, instead of transmitting data so that we can get multiple experiments, we can just put it into the storage experiment, or experiment storage unit. Now what I want to do, I think, is try to launch some sort of satellite that is for science. So to do that, we will, I guess, just get rid of this whole rocket, and instead place a probe. Now what we'll do is place the structural people. I think we can do the Science Junior and then the structural fuselage. Well, actually, I don't think we can build a satellite yet, just because we do not have solar panels. But I do want to try to launch an unmanned rocket and do research. Well, actually, no. I think we can scrap this. Instead, I think we might just do the same mission again. But this time, I think we'll just have a Science Junior pod. Now, I think we can save this as the 3B, because it's got science and people on it. And now we can actually put our few more tourists on. Well, actually, hold up. We should check. We already did Rodrigue and Laduki. So we'll do Stelvis and Melpond. And now what we can do is just launch our rocket. Well, that was a pretty catastrophic launch. I mean, we were about to tip over and probably rocket straight into the ground. So I did decide to just stop that. So I guess we can get some science while we're floating down if we haven't already. Now I guess we can just recover the vessel. And I do want to acknowledge, I do know why our rocket is tipping over like that. It is because it is way too tall for how skinny it is. So, I mean, I feel like there's not a ton we can do about that right now.
Use struts.
Because we don't have wider parts.
Use
But-
struts.
Yeah, I really don't know. Because I guess Yeah, honestly, I've got no clue. I mean, maybe we could look into parts
I
and
just told
focus
you,
more on
use
trying to get them.
struts.
But advanced rocketry doesn't solve it. Fuel systems might, but then we would also need to research heavy rocketry. But then again, I think we'd also need like an adapter too, which I don't think we have. Yeah, I don't think there's a way to get an adapter quite yet, and because we do not have the pods either, I think we're just not going to be able to do that. Oh no, we do. We have this adapter. So then, I guess so. We would want to research fuel systems and heavy rocketry, but to research heavy rocketry, we'd also have to research advanced rocketry. So, yeah, I don't know. We have to do a lot of research then. So I think that what we should look into now
Have you tried looking into struts
is
there,
trying
bud?
to get to the moon, but I guess with less science and a less tall rocket. With that said, though, we do still have to finish ferrying our tourists. So in this case, we will just use a smaller rocket, like this one. And because we already did research with these components, we will just switch it out for a Rocco Max, or no, Science Junior. And again, once more, we had problems with the rocket, and I am really just...
But seriously, if you are new to the game, struts are a great tool for connecting parts because it allows for no give and no wiggle.
But
I'm just forgetting about them right here.
I guess now that we have more money, we could look into liquid fuel, which might be more fuel dense and allow us to get further with the same, well, rocket just as tall, which would also probably be beneficial because you could control the thrust and control how fast it's launching. So I do think that's what we'll look into, just better rockets. But now we can just land and go from there. Now we did also lose our Science Junior, presumably because the vessel was too heavy, which would have again also caused problems with the other rocket on re-entry. So now I do just want to build our new rocket. For now, we'll just use this as the base, and then put a heat shield on. And there we go, that is our rocket complete, and we will save it as the RLV-4A. Now, I will put these tourists into, and we need to put Stelvis and Melpond. Now we can just launch our vessel. Now, I'm not loading it up with science equipment just because I don't want it to be too heavy and not work. So I do think taking it slow is going to be the best option here. Now, honestly, the launch before was a terrible launch. We did horrible as far as, like, getting off the ground. We were wobbling a lot, which is actually a problem with the rocket, which I will solve. I'm going to put the detach points for the extra boosters more in the middle, and that should solve our problem. Now, as we see, we do still have a ton of fuel left, but with that said, I am still going to just deorbit these people. Now, a change I did make to the rocket was having these reliant thrusters instead of swivel thrusters. The only swivel thruster was on the first stage, the main core, and that was actually also causing the bottom to wobble, which wasn't ideal, but it actually seemed to be working okay, but that was also a part of our stability problem. Now, I do want to also look into maybe if we put kind of like 2 detach points, it might solve our problem, but I'm not too sure. And that is 2 detach points for each booster, so that it's more stable. But for now, we are just going to deorbit and land these fellas safely. Well, I'm not sure how that happened, but somehow the booster recovered itself when I detached from it, but that was pretty cool. Anyways, we seem to get into the atmosphere safe enough, so now we are just going to land and recover the vessel. And there we go. Now we can just recover our rocket. We didn't get any science, but we did test our rocket, and we also completed a contract, which gave us quite a bit of money. Now, as we can see, we have still, again, very few contracts as far as variety of what they want. Now, these contracts are still focused on getting focused observatorials and temperature surveys, and eventually I think we should see some for pressure, but honestly, I'm not too sure, because it is a pretty difficult thing to do. Because again, these ones want above, and we don't have any rocket engines that are capable of reaching there. And even then, honestly, the research that it gives isn't too significant. Like, it's a lot, but I think it'll be okay. For example, this one. This one is something we can do. So actually, I am going to... Wait, what? Did I not complete this contract? Alright, we'll have to look into that next time, but I am going to keep my eyes on, I believe, this contract, just because it is very doable. But that is going to be the end of this video. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and I really want to thank you for watching through the whole thing. It really means a lot. In the meantime, if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them down below, and have yourself a great day.